our panelists to introduce themselves, in addition to the beautiful headshots that you see up there. But as Dennis was mentioning, this is a time to listen. I think all of the opening remarks had some kind of sense of, okay, let's lean in, let's listen in. Can we take a moment just to listen to that voice inside? Everybody, take your right hand and just place it on your heart for 1 second. And I just want you to find your heartbeat. And if you've got a spare hand, put it on your belly and just feel the movement of the torso with the breath. And just take a moment and feel that beat and that source of strength and life that pulses through all of us. Allow your breath to deepen. Allow your spine to lengthen. Allow your ribs to widen. And let's take a big inhale all together. And just exhale. Oh, good, good, good. Oh, I feel better now. How about you? Yeah. All right. So starting to my immediate left, I'm so excited that you are here, Beth. Would you please just introduce yourself, what you do, and then we'll pass it down the row.
Okay. Am I supposed to?
Yes, you are supposed to use the mic, Beth.
All right, sorry. Is it on? Is this thing on? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Blower. I actually got a promotion since the last time I was on a slide. So
Woo!
thank you. I'm now Vice President of Johns Hopkins University, and I oversee our public impact initiatives and everything that we do, really largely focused on Baltimore. This is not my first UNICON, so thank you for welcoming me back. If you have been a UNICON devotee, I was a contributor during COVID, actually, showcasing our work. I led the COVID data response for Hopkins and helped build the map and some of the public resources, so we had a conversation about that. But right now, my focus is on Baltimore and ways in which the institution can sort of redefine our work in the city, deepen our connection to the community, and also deepen our connection with all of the public structures where we have the privilege of sitting. So I'm very excited to be here with you, and thanks for having me.
Thanks.
I just met Beth, and I'm so happy. So I love that you want us to introduce ourselves. So this is a new introduction for me. I'm a dancer. I'm a collager. I'm a poet. I'm a singer, and I can't do any of them well at all, but I do them regularly, and that'll help make a segue into I'm the executive director of the International Arts and Mind Lab Center for Applied Neuroaesthetics in the School of Medicine at Johns Hopkins, and I'm also the co-director of something called the NeuroArts Blueprint Initiative, which is a global initiative creating a new field called NeuroArts, which is about how arts and aesthetic experiences measurably change our brains, our bodies, and our behavior, and how that gets translated into practice in health, both physical and mental health, in community building, in corporate life, in all of the different twists and turns around learning. And I'm the co-author of a book called Your Brain on Art, How the Arts Transform Us. Whoa, thank you, Mom. I'll turn it over to you. That wasn't really my mom.
Oh, too bad.
Is this okay? So
Thank you.
hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Waters. I will start by saying thank you for the happy birthday song. My birthday is coming up in a couple weeks, so I'm a November birthday. Thank you. I am also the director of the Johns Hopkins University Social Innovation Lab, which is one of 7 accelerator programs that we run out of the Pava Center for Entrepreneurship at Hopkins, which is the student, alumni, and community hub for entrepreneurship at the university. The Social Innovation Lab actually outdates and is older than the Pava Center, and its primary function is to help social and environmental impact-driven founders grow and scale their companies to do great work in and around Baltimore City. I am also a product of the Social Innovation Lab as a Baltimore community member that applied and was accepted. And then from there, connected to Cary Business School, where I got my MBA, and now back as the director of the program. And I say that because I think it's a great example of how partnership with community leads to positive outcomes, myself being one of them. And so I'm very proud of the work that we're doing to scale change and social impact in Baltimore through entrepreneurship, both on the in the university ecosystem and at in the Baltimore community at large.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wendell Patrick, and it's a pleasure to be here. I am a 28-year resident of Baltimore at this point. And I'm an associate professor in the Department of Music Engineering and Technology at the Peabody Conservatory of Music. I'm also the director of the brand new Bachelor of Hip Hop degree program. It's the first in the world, and we have our freshman class this year. And along with that, I am the host of Artworks, which is an art magazine program, which airs on Maryland Public Television and PBS. And very happy to be here.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Since the theme of this afternoon is connections, I want to just let you know how I'm connected to these people. So I was attending a course on leading crisis and innovation earlier this year, and Beth spoke, and I was just so amazed at all the things that she said and how timely it was to talk about leadership in a time of crisis, considering the room that we're in, the backdrop was the Capitol building here. So it was very poignant. And I was on a committee with Susan, and she talked about this book. I read the book, and I must have highlighted every single page. It's really a brilliant book for showing how we are interconnected and how we can use interdisciplinary studies and just activities in order to really get our brains on board. With Anthony, we were on the Zoom and realized we live one street apart from each other. He literally lives on the other street. And we didn't discover that until we were putting together this panel. And with Wendell, we teach at the Peabody Institute. And I started in 2019. So we went right into the pandemic. And it actually turned out to be a really great opportunity to meet other faculty members. Because you all know, you go in, you do your job, you go home. You don't necessarily meet other people. And every single meeting that we had on Zoom, Wendell would say something and I would think, I wish I had said that. Do you know that feeling when you see someone say something really brilliant? So I'm glad that you all are here. And I'd like to jump in with a question that maybe we're all facing right now. And that is, what challenges are you seeing leaders face right now with their values and their actions? And how does that relate to the work that you're doing? So what challenges are you seeing for leaders right now? I'll pass it to Beth first.
So I think the biggest challenge, especially when we're trying to build mission or values-driven organizations, is that we are in an unprecedented time of shifting missions and values. And it's hard. It's very hard. And, you know, we all collectively struggle with this, whether, you know, in any kind of leadership paradigm, you're always having to refresh your mission or your values or realign them to funding streams or rethink them based on priorities or current events. But I don't think there's been a time in history in which institutions have all collectively had to grapple with such a fast-paced, rapid change in the way that we think about institution building. And so I think some of the biggest challenges are, how do we preserve some of our core values, our missions, trust, some of the key things that connect us to our communities when we're up against a sort of unfathomable set of shifting landscapes in every dimension. It's not just about the federal government. This is about who funds us, who leads us, you know, our students, everything. And so I think that's probably, for me right now, the biggest challenge that I'm observing in the work.
Yes. Does that resonate with anybody else on the panel?
I would say so. And when I think of the leaders that I work with that are trying to drive social change in Baltimore, especially as they're building social enterprises where the people they serve might not be able to pay market price for the good or service that they offer. And so you're looking at the other stakeholders who you create value for as potential customers. But to her point, when it's very hard to align those incentives when the goalpost has started to shift. We have a lot of founders that work in social justice, for example, and equity work, and now companies are moving away from that language, and it's hard for them to navigate. Now, how do I make sales that still drive work that is equitable, without losing sight of the mission or the way we talk about the problems that we're facing in our communities. It creates, this very challenging space for entrepreneurs to try to sustain and build strong revenue models while also staying connected to the community and the work that they do. So that is definitely something that comes to mind when you say that.
Susan, I see you
Yeah.
raring to go.
Well, I think both of these things really resonate for me. Maybe for me, what I have seen as the elephant in the room is mental health. That at every generation intersection, there is significant stress, anxiety, and in some cases, serious mental illness. That's partly resulted from the chaos at a national level, but also existentially in thinking about climate, thinking about the economy, thinking about natural disasters, thinking about the stretch on families. And so I think there is, at a leadership level, how do you manage this kind of public health crisis? And it really is a crisis. And the younger you go, the more disconcerting it is. So I know you've all heard terms like quiet quitting. It's estimated that like 40% of the workforce is quietly quitting. So how do you create the environment, the culture that leaders can really develop to be able to hold that space and also meet deliverables and meet KPI and meet all the kinds of things that you need? And I think that when you look at the World Economic Forum and you see, okay, the things that we're looking for are creative problem solving, collaboration, innovation, the ability to make decisions and to be agile. All of those things come from, in my world, these kinds of arts-based experiences. And then you try to balance that against how do you bring something like that into a workplace where meaning making is really wired into that kind of introspection and also community building. So I think there are really deep problems, but there are also really great opportunities to build community for leaders, affordable, immediate, and accessibly.
When I think about community, I think about this statistic that we are an ultra social species, more social than chimpanzees, more social than dogs. But sometimes we forget that and we end up in these silos, and then we suffer the burnout and we see all of the other things that you guys were talking about. We need social justice in those instances, and we're feeling all these shifts, and it can weigh on us a lot if we suffer alone.
I have to say, we're like ants and bees and termites.
Isn't that amazing? Ants and bees and termites.
We're eusocial. That's the term that was coined by E.O. Wilson. And so we would pick community over ourselves. And I think that's a really important thing to come back to when it doesn't feel like that all the time.
Yeah. Wendell, what are you seeing on your front?
Well, just speaking to that point, I had a dog, and he was very social. So I don't know if we're the most social, but I think.
And the dog would be on Zoom when we had those meetings.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
I think part of a sort of a present day challenge is that social is a very quickly, rapidly shifting construct. So social for people of a certain generation, means sort of gathering together, maybe having meals, maybe convening at a conference like this and sort of sharing ideas and listening to them. For other people, social really just means online. And sometimes people can have conversations online and it feels sort of like they're being social, but really they're just expressing an opinion and aren't actually open to sort of any type of return engagement. And these are things that I think if, just speaking personally, for things that I have worked hard to build, there is that element that you have to keep in consideration. But sometimes people enjoy expressing themselves online, but they're not really interested in any sort of feedback or actual dialogue, and that can be challenging.
Yeah, I'm thinking of so many stories of my students. I work with a lot of Gen Zers. Does anybody here have a lot of Gen Z in their kind of client base? And it can be a challenge to define what social is and what just interaction looks like. I get a lot of this. They'll be talking to me, and as they're talking to me, they start looking at their Apple Watch and doing this thing. Like I can't tell that they are looking somewhere else. So then let's get down to meaning. What does your work mean to you, Beth?
What does my work mean to me?
Yeah, what does your work mean to you, and how do you make it meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Before I was doing the work I'm doing now, I was leading two academic centers on campus that were focused on at scale, doing work at scale. And so I was supporting over 400 cities worldwide and had a big team, and we were delivering lots of high impact work, and it was meaningful. Like I enjoyed it, but it was very administrative. And now, first of all, my kids are getting older. They're in high school. They're about to leave me, which is like so rude. But also I had a little bit of a growth also when they got to this point in their lives, and I said I don't want to be on the road and working at scale. Like the most important work I can do is in my own community, and in the place where I live. And so, this shift in my career is really about that. And it was largely driven by kind of where my own shift in mission and values. And my value at the time was I don't want to travel. I want to stay grounded in Baltimore. And I want to work to improve this community that has, given us as a family so much. And so I think that, we don't spend enough time having these conversations with ourselves as it relates to our work. And I think that a lot of times professional decisions are made on what the best deal looks like, where the following money, following the right research, following whatever it is. And I think if there's one thing that came out of the last, period of our near history, we need to start talking to ourselves a little bit more. I mean, I agree we also need to be more social, but I wasn't syncing up with myself in the right way. And when I did, I realized no, this is really, I think we have to, and I think when we do that, it benefits the work in exponential ways because we do feel much more tied to the mission or tied to the work itself.
And we see that self-reflection just mirrored in all of the literature on how to address things like burnout and how to really improve those outcomes and KPIs. I'm learning the business school jargon because I am in the music school jargon where we talk about andante, allegro, legato, and now I'm talking about KPIs. I love it. So what about making meaning for anybody else here? Susan, Anthony, Wendell.
Well, I love what you said about COVID sort of sent us to our rooms and made us think about where we are and who we are. It's been such an interesting time. I do think we move so fast we don't remember to just stop and reflect and to really know what is our unique purpose. And I don't think there's anybody that is ever going to be like anybody else. So we all have this amazing gift from our own perch that we can bring to the world if we are brave enough, I think, to really embrace it and then to share it, to hone it, embrace it, share it. And so sort of find, share, and celebrate who you are. For me, I think, there's been a number of kind of moments that turned me. And not to go into a whole lot of detail, but I was 12 years old when I figured out that there are a lot more better ways, I don't know if I said that right, but there are many ways to express yourself deeply and with meaning way beyond what I'm doing right now and talking. And so I discovered the arts in all their forms, creative expression in all their forms, as being ways to know someone and to know yourself like you couldn't get from just this talking. It's utility, practical, but it's not knowing. And we do it in lots of different ways. But I think when I first started the lab, a donor came to us and said, I think the arts can save us. And I said, I know they can. And so we started this journey, and at one point we started the NeuroArts blueprint. But we knew to build a brand new field was going to take, a lifetime. but we had the science, and I knew that we could start to share the science. And so, long story short, wrote this book with Ivy Ross, and then when the book came out, it became a New York Times bestseller in 4 days. And so we started sharing the work, and so this is the thing that makes meaning for me, is that the reflection of how the book has given people, individuals, permission to experience their own creative voices, that has given people language. And so every time I go and give a talk, and I was just out in Bentonville at Alice Walton's Crystal Bridges for their Wellness Festival, so I gave a talk there. I had 50 people get in line to tell me their individual stories. So I think meaning, it happens at an individual level. And I think to have a small part in igniting other people finding their own voice, I never expected that. I never thought that would be my meaning, but that's what my meaning is right now, is how do you own your own voice, your own health? We abdicate ourselves to so many different things. And so how do you own it? That's it.
I love you mentioning the fact that we have the science now. And I think about the arts, and I think about all of the different cultures that we come from. And anthropologists will show you that every culture at all times has been artistic, has been musical. It's something that we all possess and something that we use in the different ways that we work in the world. And I was watching a show last night. It was a medical drama, and the doctor was saying, yes, it's a science, but it's also an art, being a doctor. And so I wonder if we here in executive education often think about how much art is going into our courses on accounting, our courses on public speaking, and all of the other ways that we are engaging with people. Because perhaps there are benefits there to think about that in an artistic realm as well. Wendell, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I would say, in terms of meaning, I could express it in a few different ways, but I know that for me, being a musician and an artist has been important to me since I was 3 years old. It's one of my earliest memories. And I've always enjoyed making things and creating. I started playing the piano when I was 4 years old, and that's been integral to everything that I've done professionally. I also think sometimes we have to be open to receiving what meaning can mean for us. I've been an educator now on the collegiate level since 2001. I had no plans or intentions of ever teaching. I actually thought I would be terrible at it. And when I was just starting out as a music producer, I had an opportunity to teach at Loyola University in Maryland, just a few extra piano students. And the only reason I took the job was because there was a piece of equipment that I wanted to buy, and I thought I'll do this for a semester. And I ended up loving it. And it wasn't really sort of the idea of teaching. It was more just being able to pass on knowledge and information that I had gleaned on my time on this planet to others. And that's something that really stuck with me and has given me a tremendous amount of meaning. The other way that I would think about it is sometimes you may do something in life. So it could be something small. It could be something very important. And people will assign meaning to what you've done, and sometimes that doesn't actually align with your own specific thoughts. And so for me, when designing this new hip-hop degree program, which I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to do, nobody has ever had a degree in hip-hop. None of my friends, people that I perform with, tour with, travel with, have a degree in hip-hop. But everybody, all of us know a tremendous amount. And so clearly there has been dissemination and sharing of knowledge over the last 50 years in lots of different ways that didn't align with sort of a typical higher education level transmittance of information. And so with this degree, with some of the interviews that I've given, or just some of the conversations that I've had, people have said things to me like, how does it, or they've asked things like, how does it feel to know that that hip-hop is now, sort of gained the respect that it deserves, and it's now, sort of given validation. And I don't see it that way at all. I don't think hip hop needs any validation. I actually don't think it needs to be in a university setting. I think it should be, and I think it's very valuable for it to be. But it's important, I think, when doing something or making something that's going to pretty rapidly leave sort of an area where you have the ability to explain to people what it is or why you did it. It's important, I think, to get out front and sort of be able to explain what that meaning is so that people don't decide what something means and then sort of spread that out into the world. Because as we know, you could just take a phone and spread anything in the matter of seconds. So those are two, I'd say, ideas with regards to meaning that I feel strongly about.
I think that's really powerful and ties to what Beth was mentioning. By taking the time to self-reflect, then you can be very clear on what that meaning is, and then you can articulate it for others. Because sometimes we haven't done the work and we don't know, and that's when we're vulnerable for our work to be interpreted by others. Anthony, what's on your mind?
I really resonated with what he said about being open to receiving and learning what meaning can mean to you in your work. I think if you would have asked me in 2019 if I would be working in academia, and that would be a part of my story or how I connect with my community, I would have probably told you no way. I had no intention of working in this space or even academia adjacent. But, you know, I'm always been a Baltimore guy through and through. I was born and raised there. I'm a product of my village, so to speak, or my community. And so the work that I was always inspired or aspired to do was always connected back to that. The first thing I did was start a nonprofit to give scholarships to high school seniors graduating from my high school. And then even starting More Water Code, my exercise company that's centered around health outcomes and chronic disease was a response to a problem that I could aid in my community. And also me trying to pair my talents, gifts, and things that I could do well with an opportunity to be in community, to create change, et cetera. But since being in this role and coming back as the director of the Social Innovation Lab, it's elevated me professionally into a space where I have credibility, resources, and connections, and the foresight to now see at a system level what change could look like and how, you know, economic development, entrepreneurship, universities, and other stakeholders, government, et cetera, work together to drive change and how all the pieces work together. And so now my ambitions have even grown more about what is possible or what I could do in my work. And so I think being always connecting back to, you know, the root of why I started a lot of my work in the first place is helpful, but I think you'd be surprised in the spaces where you could find meaning and be able to go after the thing that you want to create, the solutions you want to build, the change you want to see, regardless of the industry or position that you sit in.
One of the themes that I'm noticing is transformation. You've all told a story of how your work has changed you. And I think that's what we're looking for when we bring these people in to do trainings is transformation on some level. We have a little bit of time for questions, so I'd like you to start thinking of what you might ask these brilliant people. And before we do that, I would just want a last, what is giving you optimism? I want to ask about optimism right now and how you are finding it in your work and how you are cultivating it in your work. Maybe I'll start thinking about that. That'll be our last word. But for now, can we take a few questions from the audience? What would you like? We have a microphone right there. We have another microphone right there. And we'd love for you to get involved. You all mentioned community as well. I moved to Baltimore in 2019, and I ride my bike to work when I can, when the weather facilitates it. And I do think I have this very unique vantage point of Baltimore because when I'm on my bike, everybody talks to me. At every stoplight, people talk to me. They talk to me about my bike. They talk to me about my day. And I think it's it's a thing that I never expected because wherever I've lived, I've rode my bike to work. But it has created community in those unexpected places that you were mentioning. So I just wanted to mention that I have a bike. And if anybody wants to do a bike trip when we're in Switzerland in the mountains, I'll be available. Okay, some questions. What's on your mind? All right, I see one up there.
Hi there. Ooh, loud. I'm loud anyway, so.
Same.
So, my name's Mary Wickwire. I am with the University of Georgia, Terry College of Business, Executive Education. And my question is, I noticed that almost all of you have a background in the arts or an interest in the arts, which I love, as I have a background in the arts also, although I never pursued it. And my question is, have any of you incorporated what you do into the executive education program here at Johns Hopkins? And because I think it's important, as you just noted in your panel discussion, and if you did that, how so?
Well, so I have the privilege of being a professor of the practice here at the Carey School of Business, which I'm deeply proud of. And I occasionally get asked to participate in their executive education programming. And, you know, my art, if you want to call it art, is really in how do you create data visualizations that can provoke conversation, that can drive decision making, that can, and I do think that it is art. So I'm probably the least artistic person up here, but that is, you know, and so oftentimes we don't allow people to express their passion when they're doing things that were maybe routinely seen as mundane. But I have seen some horrible data visualizations that obscure the reality, that are confusing, that have multiple, you know, just really bad ways of relaying information that actually create distrust and that create. And so I am really, I've had the privilege of teaching healthcare officials how to use data visualizations to encourage more participation in how they reach KPIs within their organizations, how to use data visualization to win arguments, to persuade, to advocate for yourself. And it all starts with kind of that storytelling. And, you know, we can't just barf out a lot of data and expect people to be motivated. We have to pair data with calls to action. We have to pair data with like a specific story, contextualize it. And so that marriage between the sort of hardcore data and information and the way that we relay it is critically important. And I think it is a pursuit of creativity. And so that's how it shows up in. And then I also always typically start all of my internal meetings with a song, like from my own playlists. And so I don't sing them. So it's like, here's a brief little history of the Riot Girl movement in Washington, D.C. in the early 90s, you know, or something like that, and then play that song and connect it to the work, because I do feel like I'd like to reveal myself as a human being first and then move throughout the day. So.
Can I jump in on this one? Is it okay if I answer it?
Absolutely, but you have to sing.
Oh. So I was doing a production, this was in, I think, 2022, of Don Giovanni. And I was singing Leporello. And I call this one, I've done this role a lot of times, but I call this one Don Giovanni in a box. Because this was during the pandemic. So we all had to stand in 4x4 cellophane boxes, and we would sing, and then we had to put on our mask before we got out of the box. We couldn't talk to each other. We couldn't hang out together because there were still the COVID restrictions. And I don't know if you know this, but singing is a really great way to spread vapor and to spread COVID. So we were trying to protect each other. And when we finally were able, after the show, to get together and just have a meal outside, it was all, what's your next project? And I was getting ready to come back here to Baltimore and to do a course on public speaking. And all my opera friends are like, you do what? Where? And it was so fun to explain to them that the same voice that we use that had been transformed through the pandemic. Remember when we were on Zoom and all of our voices got really, really tired and we had to relearn how to use our voices? I was helping people get through that because it's something that I had personal experience with. Back in 2018, I lost my voice completely and had to be on voice rest or silence for 2 months. I had to learn how to recuperate my voice, had to start from zero all over again. And it was the most amazing thing that happened to me. So now, having that experience, I get to share it with people who have maybe a little fear of public speaking when I'm teaching public speaking for professionals. And when I'm teaching executive presence, I get to show people how to fake it till you make it. We all know that one, right? And then when I'm teaching executive improv, I get to tell people how to do things like what we're doing here, where there are all these balls in the air, which we're all experiencing. We don't know what the questions are going to be, but we've got to have an answer. And so it's been so neat to see all of the training that I have to do Leporello being transformed to help other people in their artistic endeavors. I wonder how many people here have some sort of arts in their background? Can I see a show of hands? I'm seeing a lot of artists. Okay, how many of you think about what you do in executive education also as an art? I'm seeing a lot of hands there too. And I think that's really beautiful and kind of is represented in what you are writing about, what you are teaching about, what you are talking about. All right, we are in the final stretch. So I'm going to ask you all, what is bringing you optimism? Starting with Beth. Starting with Wendell.
Yeah, thank you.
See, I'm improvising always.
Oh, man. What is giving me optimism? Well, I would say that this might be a funny way to answer this initially, but the first thing that is giving me optimism is my own personal choice not to inadvertently seek out my own pessimism. It's very easy to look around you and find things that can bring you down. Again, that phone is there. Also, the interesting thing about technology is the same way that ads for different products are sort of funneled directly to you. I know that for me, this probably won't mean anything to a lot of you, but on social media, I get lots of music plug-in ads for different music software, and I head straight to the checkout and buy it.
Same.
Yeah. But in that same way, pessimism, your personalized pessimism is also delivered to you. And so you can actively try to avoid that. The second thing that I'm optimistic about is my individual one-on-one relationships that I have fostered over the last few years and that have led to other professional engagements and opportunities. Carl was speaking again about all of our Zoom meetings on Peabody, and I think at that particular point in time, that was like the most faculty I'd ever seen like in one place. It was all on Zoom, but it was like 30, 40, 50 people. And since then, a number of faculty members have talked about how those meetings have grown into relationships where we may just be meeting for coffee or there are some incredible artistic opportunities that have come about as a result of that. And so just the Peabody campus, I would say in general, over the last 3-4 years, has become much, much more engaging and a wonderful place to be. And I'm trying to bring that into just my everyday life and be open to all sorts of opportunities, whether it's being invited to come and speak or finding myself in an artistic situation that would have previously seemed uncomfortable, but then yields amazing results. So I'm optimistic about that.
Yeah, thank you. Anthony?
Yes, I'm optimistic about the opportunity. I'm very bullish on Baltimore, and I think there's so much opportunity. We have a ton of social problems to fix, right? But also, in this work, meeting the entrepreneurs that are in communities every day, working to change that, and again, being an ecosystem leader or a part of a support organization that helps to facilitate that, I think has shown me the power of how we might be able to leverage entrepreneurship to drive change. And furthermore, work together as an ecosystem, entrepreneurship aside, to drive change. And an opportunity for the institutions, right? Because Baltimore is a city that's industry is dominated by its universities and medical institutions. And how might we leverage the resources on our campuses? And I think this is a challenge to you all as well to think about and reflect on. How do we leverage the resources and the infrastructure that we have to partner with community, to create change in community, to build executive leaders in community, et cetera, to think about how we fit in those communities. And for a long time, there has been a rift between, Hopkins and the community it sits in. There's a lot of, interesting history around that. And, I think programs like the Social Innovation Lab, or the work that Beth does is so important to fixing that, but also we can leverage that to really, really bring about something positive and continue to see Baltimore grow in a great way. So that's what I'm optimistic about, the work ahead.
Yeah, I'm bullish on Baltimore too. All right, Susan?
I'll just say briefly that I'm optimistic about the choice to move towards kindness to each other. And I think it's right now a choice between sometimes kindness and unkindness, right? And I think, the collective consciousness of when we put out energy toward each other that's positive. Like, I did this experiment where I just smile at people in the grocery store, and they smile back. And it's amazing. Like, if you there is, like, stress is a pheromone, it's in the atmosphere. So is kindness, and so is hope. And so I'm really optimistic about kindness and hope.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to try that, Susan. Okay.
You have to work it.
Okay. All right, I'll work on it.
smiling.
I'll work on it. All right, Beth, what makes you optimistic?
So I think Anthony captured the optimism that Baltimore brings on a daily basis. If you have not visited Baltimore before, I invite you all there, and I will be happy to take you around and show you the highlights. But some of the big impacts that we've had as a city, we have had the most precipitous decline in crime in any American city, and we're at a lower rate than ever historically recorded. And so that's been a huge piece. We're now tackling our vacant housing challenges. We're starting to see the green shoots of really important coordination between anchor institutions and the city. We are still challenged. Amy Sherrill has got an amazing new exhibit at the Baltimore Museum of Art, which is bringing me a ton of optimism. So Baltimore definitely fills my cup every day, which is also kind of a confirmation that the role is the right role. But I will tell you the one thing actually that's bringing me a lot of optimism right now is that my kids are going to parties again. And I know that this may produce some stress for other parents, but my kids came of age in COVID, and they did not know how to build relationships with each other. They learned on computers, and they were not allowed to socialize. And my senior in high school, this is the first year where there's parties, where there's like raging cops shutting it down parties, and there's no evidence on social media that he's at these, like it's not being broadcast, right? And that actually is, like, for me, a relief. He doesn't have Snapchat. He got rid of Instagram. Like, he's going totally analog. It's part of his movement with his friends. And I think for me, like, that is like, okay, we're gonna be okay, because the kids are partying again. And so that's what's
Coolest mom ever, for
The
sure.
kids are all right. Speaking of